Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Hey everyone, welcome back to the ParentPorch Podcast. I am your host, Dom, and I'm here with a special guest today, which I'll get to in a second. I just want to thank our podcast sponsor, Pop. Think about trying Pop and their starter kit if you're looking for a fun way to bring popcorn into your home. Nothing too fancy, super easy. My 3-year-old loves Pop's popcorn, and we're talking about a child with autism who eats limited foods. He loves this popcorn, and so we are making it too much at this point, and I love it. It's pretty good with a lot of different flavors. So thank you, Pop. I encourage everybody, this is the season of popcorn balls. I think it's a great time to get some of the Pop popcorn in their starter kit to try it out. You'll find the link in our description. So the fun part's over. Let's get into some more fun. We are bringing back a guest that we spoke to earlier this year about neurospicy kids, and now we're going to talk about supporting kids through transitions, particularly neurodiverse children or just like teens in general, with the amazing Elaine Taylor-Klaus from Impact Parents. We really enjoy you. We enjoy the content that you share and the programming that you share with parents. We love including it in our newsletter. By the way, if you have not signed up for our newsletter, please go to ParentPorch.com and sign up, because every time they have something, it is in our newsletter. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode. It's going to be a great one. We have a lot of fun stuff prepared for you. But Elaine, remind us who you are, where they can find you and Impact Parents, and how long you've been doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you. It is always fun to be here with you. And so I'm thrilled for this conversation. And transitions is a favorite topic. I've done tons of workshops on this over the years. It's a hot topic. I'm Elaine Taylor-Klaus. I'm one of the co-founders of Impact Parents. I'm the author of The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids with ADHD, Anxiety, and More. And I describe kids as anybody younger than you are. Right? Really kids, parents of kids, and professionals supporting families of kids 4 to 40. There's no real age range, because as parents and as professionals supporting these kids, we're always supporting them, no matter how old we get, no matter how old they get, right?
Yeah.
So we provide coaching and training for parents and professionals, and we do professional certification programs as well. And it's all about using the coach approach. We call it a neuro-informed coach approach. So we took coaching, we blended in neurodiversity, and we got magic. And so we share magic and help people stay sane while raising complex kids.
Love that. And I love that you mentioned children younger than you, because it doesn't end. I think we talk about children sometimes in a way where, like, oh, once they turn 17, 18, or they go to college, like, I'm done. No, you're definitely still their parent.
You're
and
never
still
done.
need you. I am 40 years old. Still need my mom, like, for certain things. I don't need her for everything anymore, right? Like, not in the same ways, but there are times where I had to tell her, like, hey, in this situation, I just want you to be my mom. I just want you to be my mom. I don't need you to be anybody else's mom. I don't even need you to try to parent my children. I just want you to be my mom in this moment.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so she's kind of like, yeah, you're right. I am. Like,
forever. Like,
I
my
just
kids
need to worry about you and let you worry about your children. So
Yeah. Now I'm with you. My eldest kids are my eldest is 31. They're married to somebody who's 37. So those are my kids.
Yep.
And very much my kids. And then I have this 89-year-old mother who is now becoming my kid in a different way. So I'm only now with her in her late 80s beginning to shift roles, because and she's still my greatest fan, and she's still my greatest champion. And I need that so that I can be that for everybody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I love that. It's so true. And we joke about raising your parents, but like, it is a thing. The roles do shift a little bit unless they want something different. And I think even still, even if, your parent, I know people whose parents are like, no, I've figured it all out what I want to do, right? as I get older. And there still becomes a point where you're like, they still need their kids though.
Yeah.
And so you become, the person who's raising them. So I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of your kids, you have exciting news about one of your kids, and I want to make space for it because we need some goodness.
We need celebration, don't we? It's
Yes.
so true. Celebration is so important. So my eldest kid, who I said is 31, is Bex, and they're an actor, and they've been an actor since they were a teenager. And they're in a new movie called Re-Election with Tony Danza and Adam Saunders and Kim Whitley and a bunch of others. Riz, I'm blanking on his last name, like really great cast. And they're a pivot role in the movie, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a really, it's a feels like going back to the 90s kind of high school movie. It's a 40-something-year-old who goes back to high school, but it's got this whole bunch of twists in it, and it just leaves you feeling hopeful and positive. And I don't know about you, but I could use a little hope and positivity in the world right now. And my kid is a complex kid, and so plays a complex character in this movie. And that's part of the theme of the movie is, when our kids don't quite fit the mold, how does the world begin to look at people differently? And how do we bring people in and include people differently as we move into this new world we live in? So it's really cool. I highly recommend it. It's called Re-Election.
I love it. Everyone go see it. It's coming out in theaters this week when we're recording. So by the time this comes out, it'll have been in theaters a couple of weeks, but y'all will still have a chance to see it.
The way it works with an indie film is that if it gets into a theater, if people go, then it will stay longer. And then if people go, it will stay longer. So the hope is that it will spread across the country. Right now it's in Atlanta, Dallas, and New York City.
Okay, good. Oh, it's
I hope
my
it-
area, so I can definitely go see it. Awesome.
Yeah. Are you in Dallas?
I'm in Dallas, yes.
You're in Dallas. It's there this weekend.
Oh, yep, I'll be going. For sure. Love it. Okay,
Thank you
well,
for
yes,
letting me
everyone, let's
celebrate.
support it.
Let's
Let's support you're in one of those cities. Love,
Yeah.
love. And like an amazing cast. I'm like people I grew up watching. So like for your child to like be in a movie with folks they grew up watching, I'm sure.
I'm telling you, I got to hang out with Tony Danza and Kim Whitley, who is fabulous and has teenagers. We had a lot of parenting talks, and I taught her a technique. We'll see if that comes up today.
I love. Well, let's jump in because we are talking about transitions, particularly for teens, and I know that this is something that you have expertise in, and it's really, I think, something that came up when I first talked to Diane as well, just about the work that you all do, and so. Yeah. Really, right now, I think many parents are worrying about whether their neurodiverse teens are ready, to leave their home or move on to the next stage of their life, particularly if they've had the diagnosis for a long time. And so, from your experience, what does readiness actually look like? And how might it differ for kids with ADHD, autism, or other neurodiversities?
That's a great question. So the thought that comes to me in answering the question is for everybody listening to think back to when you first left home and to ask yourself, were you really ready? Like, is anybody really ready? So we do have to. So the first question is really important. Like, what does ready mean? And I think ready means they're ready to take on the challenge. I don't think ready means they need to be able to do absolutely everything for themselves. And I know that one of my kids was afraid to apply to college, and a really, really performing kid. And we couldn't figure out what was going on because she was such a great student. And she thought turning 18 meant she had to know how to do her taxes. So part of ready is setting expectations and helping them understand what they do need to be able to manage and take care of and what they don't.
Yeah.
And that you're still going to be there supporting and scaffolding, and it's not all up to them. So I think on the sort of conceptual level, if you will, getting ready to move to the next stage is about anticipating it and thinking about it and being excited about it and being a little nervous, but being kind of practical. It's, want to make sure they know how to make a meal or two. They don't have to be able to cook complete meals for themselves. You want to make sure they can, the basic principles of doing laundry so they don't end up wearing pink and blue clothes everywhere, but ultimately, if they feel ready to take the next step, then they're ready. And even if you're looking at it and going, oh my God, this kid's got no executive function, and how can they possibly do that? And that's what it was like when my kid left home. We talked a lot, and it was like, I'll handle this, you handle that. And we collaborating from a distance. And we can do that if our relationship's strong and we're really working on seeing what's possible for them and what they're capable of, instead of only seeing their limitations. And if we're a little nervous ourselves, we might tend to only see their limitations. And they really need us to see their full capacity.
I like that perspective shift.
Yeah.
And seeing a person's strength, right? We want people to see our strengths, and then for them to get us the resources or the support needed if there's something we need to learn or figure out. And I often talk to people, this comes up at some point every couple of weeks, where I tell people there are some things that you're never going to experience until you're 65 on vacation on a cruise boat. And then something happens, and no one could have prepared you for that moment. Your parents could have told you everything. You could have read every book on a subject, and then something new is happening in the world, and you've now encountered it. You want support getting through that, and I think it's the same with kids. So that first question of like, ask yourself, were you ready? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I was ready for the challenge. I was ready to leave, right? I was ready to leave home and have a new experience. I did not realize everything that came with that.
Exactly. But think about what you just said, right? I think the question is, are you ready, or do you trust that you have the capacity to handle a certain amount of uncertainty, right? That's really what going off into the world, whether you're going to college or going to get a job or moving out, whatever it is, moving into high school to the next year of high school, all of it is about, I don't really know what to expect. The question is, can I trust my capacity to dance with what happens? And that's really what we want to foster in our kids is resilience and that belief in their ability to figure it out. I mean, I know I used to say to my kids all the time, you're so resourceful. What do you think is possible here? Or what can you figure out? Or I used to tell them a lot, I believe you're really resourceful. Or I would let them hear me say, you're resourceful, you'll figure this out. And that wasn't to say I'm not going to help you, but I wanted them to get the message that I believed that they could think through things and problem solve, right? And we forget, when we solve problems for our kids, we're actually robbing them of the opportunity to be how to problem solve for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So I believe that if you believe that you're resourceful and you believe that you're capable of figuring things out, then when you get into new environments, you'll figure things out.
Yeah. Yeah. Always a time to have to be resourceful and
Yeah.
figure things out. Even if you just watch social media and you scroll long enough, you are going to start to see the people who are telling you, like, I used to think this way until this happened, and now I realize this. How I figured this thing out, and so it's so true.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure I answered the whole question. There was a second part of that question I'm not sure we got to.
You said, how might it differ for kids with ADHD, autism, or other neurodiversities? But I really think you answered that. Is the not thinking about like deficits or their potential challenges, but like, can they navigate it? But feel free to add more.
Here's the other thing I want to add is sometimes when you have kids with executive function challenges, you may need to more overtly kind of check in and make sure, or ask them, like some help learning to do laundry before you go away, or, don't make assumptions about what they have learned, life skills that they've learned, because they may have been very busy focused on school and may never have gotten to things like, how do I turn on a dishwasher or turn on a, how do I run the laundry? And that's okay. It's really okay. There's actually an article on the site, I'll send you a link to it, where one day when my eldest kid left town, I woke up before they left at about 2 a.m. in one of those panics of, oh my God, they're going to learn to do all these things I've been doing for them. And I wrote it all down. And I created it in like a checklist, so you can print it out and go through it with your kid and say, which of these is important and which is not. And like, it's really done as a checklist for what kids need to know before they leave home.
I love it. It's so funny because it reminds me of how I'm 40, my brother's 42, and how every week or so he asks, like, how do I cook this thing? Like, I've got all the tools for the most part, and I've been to his house, and I'm like, No wonder you ask every week or so how to cook something, because you don't necessarily have things that go together. But he's got the tools, right? He's got the basics. So this week
Right.
it's like pot roast, and he's sending us pictures like, did I cut the potatoes?
Right.
Right? Is this? I think I over seasoned it, and I'm like, I can guarantee you didn't. But like walking through that, because when he left home, knowing how to cook didn't matter as much, right?
Especially,
They knew that he wasn't leaving the city or the state,
right.
but I was leaving for college. So like me knowing how to cook mattered. If he needed to eat, he could just go to my mom or my grandma's house or my cousin's house, or
Right.
he was going to starve. He was going to go and figure it out. And so it's interesting because now it's like, okay, I guess I should learn it. Like,
I love that
should
he's
learn at
asking for
42.
help. Good for
Yeah.
him. Because some
Yeah.
people, it's really hard to ask for help. They're very embarrassed. So I
Yeah.
think the number one skill we can teach kids before they leave home is the of asking for help without any shame or embarrassment.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I think asking people that won't shame and embarrass you.
No, people love it.
Because it was like 7:30 a.m. on Monday, and he's like, I need to put this on before I go to work in the crock pot. Like, help me.
Call the slow cooker, honey.
Yeah. I'm like, put it on low. Let me tell you what to do. When he got home, of course, he didn't tell us how it was. We had to check. We're like, how was it? He's like, it was good. We're like, where's the picture? He's like, oh, I ate it all. So I'm like, okay. Obviously, it was terrific because
She ate it all.
because you ate multiple servings. Like, I think it's a good point. It's like, also, it's just making me think about like, and then what does each kid need? Like, we knew my brother had ADHD growing up.
Yeah.
And so it was, what does he need to still be in town? If you were going to teach him about money management and credit and, all the things that like I got like the very basics of before leaving, he wasn't going to go. He would have been like, you know what, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? But he was staying in town, so you have more time. So I love that. Just the checking in and the checklist. We'll definitely include that in the description because people love tools. So I'll probably keep that for myself too.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So how can parents balance like offering support while also like allowing independence, especially for teens who may need more like scaffolding as they move into work or college or the military?
So here's the key. And see, this is what I was talking to Kim about, right? The key with parenting in a way that fosters independence, and that's really what you're asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is how do we foster their independence and still support them without enabling them? And the key is do it from to make sure that not seeing us as imposing or controlling or directing, but to really be collaborative with them so that they feel supported in the process. So the tool that I was playing with this weekend was, I have an idea. I have a thought. Would you like to hear it? Just that. I have a thought. Would you like to hear it? Brings the attention instead of coming in and saying, you really need to, right? Which puts them on the defensive, makes them angry or annoyed, pushes them back and having them say, nah, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I've got a thought. Would you like to hear it? And they say, they're going to get a little curious. Okay. Yeah. Right. Then we can say, I was thinking it might make sense to, or my experience, I've learned that, or then you can offer something where they see it as an offer that's helpful instead of you trying to control. The thing to remember about this, the whole parenting child dynamic, is that it's a control game, and it's easy for them to feel controlled.
Yep.
Even if we're not trying to control, we're just so in the habit of it, of directing, and they're in the habit of either being directed or pushing back against it. And what we want is to invite them to start taking the lead. And they're not going to do that naturally if we don't really open up the possibility for it. If we don't invite it, if we don't make it comfortable for them so that we're not feel like they're hurting our feelings or upsetting us or, because they love us and they don't actually want to, but that we don't realize how much control is at play when we're parenting.
Yeah.
We just don't, because we don't see it that way.
Yeah.
We do with our own parents. Like if we think about, like, do I want my mom telling me I should do this and this? Like, no, I really don't. But if mom says, I was thinking about that outfit you were going to wear Saturday night. I have an idea. Do you want to hear it? I'd want to hear it. Right. But if she says, I really think you should wear the blue outfit, you don't look so great in the green outfit, I would not feel so happy.
No.
So it's not just what we say, it's how we say it. And if we think about it from a place of I say to parents in my community, our job as parents is to be an invitation, to a healthy, loving relationship with them, to be an invitation to supporting them and taking the lead of their own life. And so if we can approach it from invitation, and if we can ask permission before we give advice, it'll go a long way to fostering their independence. And then we can offer, it's like, I can count on me to handle, like when my kids were going away at that young age, you can count on me to be on top of the financial stuff. You do not have to handle that while you're learning how to make it at school. And you're going to have to open a bank account, but you don't have to don't worry about it. I'm going to pay the bills for the first while. And then we worked to a place where eventually they were paying the bills, but they weren't ready to do that at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's gradual and it's collaborative. That's probably the biggest important point.
I like that. How young would you say you can start that?
So young. You would be amazed. In fact, I think that we as parents do a great job of collaborating with toddlers. And then somehow they go to first grade and we move back. So with toddlers, we're like, do you want the blue shorts or the green shorts? Do you want to build blocks or do you want to play with the Play-Doh, right? We give them all kinds of choices. Do you want to brush your teeth standing up or sitting down? And then they go to kindergarten. And for the first time or first grade, the teacher closes the door and the teacher goes into director mode. You have to do this and then this and then this. First you do this, then this. And I think that they lose a lot of the autonomy that they've learned in preschool when they get to grade school. And then we kind of align with the teachers and we're all directing, and you got to do your homework and you got to do this and you got to do that. And we take choice away from them in elementary school. And so I think it starts super, super young, and the more we can continue it, the easier it becomes as they become teenagers.
I like that. And you just helped me to remember that I give choices all day.
All day.
My 2 and 3 year old all day long.
Right.
Didn't. First of all, I don't know how much we would actually get done.
Well, and that's what happens with teenagers, Dom. That's what happens. Teenagers are like toddlers.
Yeah.
They want control. And if we're fighting them for the control, nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But if we're like, oh yeah, there's independent human being. No wonder they want control. That makes sense. How can I give them control within these in a way that's safe and productive?
Yeah.
Right?
It's so funny because my 2-year-old, I'm training both, but my son is non-speaking, but my daughter can talk. And it's funny when I say, okay, go. She says, no, I don't need to potty. When I say, do you need to go potty? She says, yes, I need to potty. Like it be right after each other.
That's right.
Because now it is her idea. It is her choice. Now there are other times where I'm like, okay, you pottied on yourself. Like, let's go get cleaned up. So yesterday, I need to go potty. And she said, yes, I already potty. I dirty. And I said, okay, let's go get cleaned up. Well, in the midst of that, she said, can I go outside? And I said, yes, you can go outside. After you get cleaned, remember you're dirty. And she sort of fought it a little bit, and I repeated to her again. I said, do you need to go potty because you're dirty? Yes. Okay, if you go potty because you're dirty, like first, you get cleaned up, then you can go outside. And she sort of her eyes and she thinks about it and she says, yes. Yeah. And then we go handle it, we go outside. But there are little wheels turning, right?
Well, what you're doing, Dom, is when you ask questions, like that's the essence of the coach approach. When you ask questions, when you tell somebody something, it's information, and they can vote on it. Do I like it or not? Do I agree with it or not? No, I don't want to, right? But if you ask them a question and they answer it, that information is now insight that belongs to them. Oh yeah, I go potty, or oh yeah, I would like to be clean before I go outside.
Yeah.
Right. So if you, instead of whenever we have an opportunity to ask a question instead of giving a direction, I say ask, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Them to practice decision making. And that's what we want them to practice doing, so that when they go off on their own, they'll be have a little more practice at making decisions.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what helps make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
experience. It's the practice. We shared, or we will be sharing information that's come out about all this research about kids being bored, and how it sparks like problem solving and creativity and innovation. And this is making me think a lot about that as well, because one of the suggestions is letting kids be bored and like affirming them in, I think you'll be able to figure this out during this time. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many things you could do right now. How about you
Yeah.
take a second and think about some things you could do for the next 10 minutes, right before dinner's ready or whatever it is. And
That's on the screen.
yeah.
This is a lot of research also coming out about, so in the ADHD space in particular, sometimes people experience boredom almost like pain. And so it can feel like pain in the body. And so part of our job is to extend that frustration tolerance, that pain tolerance, and to learn to be okay. And so to do that, not only do you want to say, I think you can figure it out, but you want to acknowledge, I get that it's hard to feel bored.
Yeah.
I guess that it might even almost hurt to feel bored. And I am confident it's not going to kill you. You can do this, but we want to start by acknowledging that it's difficult for them, because we've raised a generation of kids in this world who don't understand the patience for things to take more than seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They just don't have the tolerance that they're going to need to be able to make it when they have to stand in line at the DMV.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
It's a perfect example of
isn't
when
it?
you need patience. Or the grocery store because you forgot something on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I'm glad that we like talked about that. I'm glad I asked that question about like what age, because I think that will help so many parents of elementary age kids to say, wait, we can actually make this shift right now.
Oh yeah.
Bring back that of independence. So love that. Let's see. So for parents whose teens are like struggling with transitions or resisting transitions, what are some gentle ways they can shift their parenting approach to support their children?
So the thing about transitions, let's talk about what transitions are. Okay. Whenever we stop one thing and start another, it's a transition. Stopping homework and going to dinner, stopping playing and going to bed, stopping reading and going to sleep. Almost everything in our day, we have transitions all day long. And if you're a person who tends to hyper-focus on something, stopping and then starting again on something else can be exhausting. It's a lot of energy to transition. Talking to people, socializing is a transition. You stop from one conversation and go to another, or like it shows up in so many ways. Sleep, all kinds of challenges around sleep are really very often transition challenges. And so I want to start by setting the notion that, like, if you think about how often kids are keying in on a piece of technology in a day, okay? You and I are having this conversation. If you were talking to a teenager, at some point in this conversation, they'd look down on their phone, right? They'd process something else, and then they'd come back to you. That's a transition.
Yeah.
Right? Transition has to do with, where is my attention? And if we're moving our attention from one thing to another, we're transitioning. And it can, when we do it a lot, and we are now living in an interruption-driven world where we're transitioning all day long.
Yeah.
Right? It can be really exhausting. So I want to start with that. And I kind of lost the original question. But how do we prepare kids for transition, I think, is the underscoring question. And I think that for that, first we have to start raising awareness to it. Understanding that if we are expecting them to shift from one thing to another, but they're not expecting it, or they haven't anticipated it, then we could be throwing a wrench in because they don't really realize it's coming. If we're the ones saying, okay, it's time to come to dinner now, right? As an example. How many of us have said, the joke of my family is hot food on the table because my husband's the cook of the family. If we haven't anticipated that this person's still working, this one's doing their homework, this one's on a phone call with their grandma, and if we haven't given them the time to transition, or we haven't taken into account how much time they're going to need to transition, then we're asking them to stop one thing and move to another without any preparation. And we do it all the time. They come do it to us and we say, don't interrupt me, or wait till I'm done. Or right, we can set a boundary for ourselves, but we don't always give them permission for boundaries. I mean, Diane did this exercise once that I loved. She sat with her son to figure out how long it took, whatever game he was playing at the time, he was a teenager, how long did it take to actually stop the game he was playing, right? Because he was a gamer, he was gaming with other kids. It took 22 minutes. So if she was giving him a 5-minute warning for dinner and it took 22 minutes to stop the game once he started the process of stopping the game, now we're in a fight.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not his fault or her fault. So we really have to understand these different transitions and set some reasonable expectations for them and communicate them clearly. So that, like, it's really good at our house of saying, can I have your attention for a minute? Or do you have a minute? Can you let me know when you're at a stopping point?
I like that.
Right? Ways to the human experience of stopping one thing and starting another. Instead of, because I have an assistant who works here sometimes, and she would come in and start talking, and then I'd look up and go, were you talking to me? She didn't have my attention. She didn't, you have to get someone's attention before you start talking to them.
Yeah.
And if you're screaming at them from the other side of the apartment, you don't know that you've got their attention. You know you've communicated it, but you don't know it was received.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. My mom will stand right in front of me talking, but I'm sending an email or something
if
like
you're
that.
doing something else,
She's thoroughly convinced I'm listening to her. And then after a while, I'll go, are you talking to yourself? And she's like, no, I've been talking to you for however many minutes. And I'm like, oh, well, you should have said something. You have no idea. And it's
we do it all the time. Yeah.
This part, the way in which you had us think about transitions is great, because I used to say I struggle with transitions. And it's really big transitions. When I was seeing, like one of my doctors, I just talked about certain types a year where there were just like a lot of big transitions, but we never got granular about how often I was transitioning during a regular day, because I think that would have helped me realize, like, I could
handle them.
I handle them well. Maybe some of the bigger ones where I'm moving from one place to another, I need more support, and I hadn't done it. I hadn't asked for it. I hadn't put it together or something like that. And so I love that, because I just learned with my son, who I mentioned has autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and he's non-speaking.
Yeah.
I was trying to get, his favorite thing is water. So I was trying to get him out of the bath after about 10 minutes, like his sister. And she doesn't care. She's going to get in the bath. And then when I say, like, okay, let's like clean up, it's time to get out, right? He loves it. So it's got to be 30 minutes. Yep. So I was doing the 10-minute thing, and huge meltdowns. It got to the point where he was like stomping in the bathtub, getting out and like stomping and, everything else. And I'm like, he's crying. I feel really bad, but like, I don't understand, because we've taken a bath for like 10 minutes,
But it suits
one of his therapists said, did you ever ask him if he was done and ready to get out? And I'm like, in my mind, it's like, that's ridiculous. He's when I say it's time to get out of the tub, like it's time to get out of the tub. But then I thought, no, I actually hadn't asked him, like, what was the real reason that he needed to get out after 10 minutes? There wasn't one. It's just, I was used to, right? Like, for my needs, sort of, he needed to be done in 10 minutes so we could move to the next thing. But for his needs, he has to have 30 minutes. When we started shifting to 30 minutes, it became his idea to get out. There were no meltdowns.
Yeah.
We could, like, letting the water go down the drain and him watching it was fun. Yeah. And he easily transitioned into the next thing, which was, like sort of like strength, kind of like if we're jumping on the bed, we're like doing some heavy work before he goes to bed. But I was at that shift of like, there actually is no real reason why it needs to be 10 minutes, unless we're never rushing anywhere at night, right? So unless it's like a quick morning thing, okay. But that shifted it even at 3 years old, that didn't have to be difficult. There was something I was doing,
Well, there are two
making it
things.
difficult for him.
So let can I shine a mirror for you, help you see
Sure.
what just happened. One, you gave him choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gave him agency. The ability to feel a sense of control over our life is agency. We want to foster independence. Independence is agency, right? So you gave him a sense of agency. That's key. The other thing that is there is that he had a voice in what was happening and he was able to be part of the decision making. You showed some flexibility in the structure. So what started off as a structure that worked stopped working. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of making the structure the goal, we bathe for 10 minutes, you became flexible with the structure. We're going to take a bath, and this time it's going to be 20 or 30 minutes. And by adapting the structure to his changing needs, you still had the structure of the bath, right? But it changed as growing and changing his awareness. He needs it for sensory soothing. Like there's all kinds of things that it could be doing for him. Some kids won't get in the bath, some kids won't get out of the bath. And so allowing it to be his agenda and adapting a system, letting him be part of adapting the system, he's beginning to learn how to create systems that work for him, which is super, super. There was one other thing I was thinking about as you were saying it that I wanted to come back to, but it'll come back. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I won't remember.
I love that him having a voice, right, and an
Mhm.
opportunity to, and he was voicing it, and I was just like, okay, I'll distract you like from this meltdown or whatever, right? And then I realized like, wow, this is every night now. Like, huh,
Going on here.
yeah, there's something going on here. And so I'm actually really
He's
glad that
changing
I
and
am.
growing.
Yeah.
Kids grow, and this is true for at every stage and age, and for us as humans too. Our needs are going to shift just a little bit, and we have to be flexible with them and adapt with them instead of trying to keep things with structure. So a lot of parenting experts will tell parents you need structure.
Yeah.
I don't think structure is a bad thing. I believe in structure, but I don't believe that the point of a structure is the structure. The structure helps us achieve other goals. So we put a system in place or a structure in place in order to achieve a larger goal. A peaceful evening, getting homework done, getting ready for school, getting to school on time. Like we put these systems in place in order to achieve the goal. The goal isn't to follow the structure. The goal is to use the structure. And so we need to be adaptive with it, flexible with it. So it can change as we change. Like I'm a person who's motivated by novelty, right? So I'm an ADHDer who really likes things to be novel. I get bored with my systems. And so sometimes I'm going to change it up and I'm going to change a system that works perfectly well because I'm just ready for something new and I need something a little more interesting. And so being to adapt, we were talking about transitions and we're talking about uncertainty, and being able to adapt to changing circumstances is probably one of the greater skills we can teach our kids besides asking for help.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's see. So from your perspective, what makes Gen Z and Gen Alpha unique when it comes to these big life transitions, moving out of the house, going to work, military, college, whatever they choose? Like, what makes them different? And how does, we sort of got into this, how does like social media and online influence, and their approach to adulthood?
Okay, write down because I just remembered what I wanted to say about the other one. So I'm going to write that down. So we'll come back to it. What makes this generation different is this. We are not raising kids in the world we were raised in. I'm not, certainly, but you're not even raising kids in the world you were raised in, and you're only 40 years old.
Yeah.
right? This tendency, because we're human, to approach everything through the lens of our experience. This is what it was like for me growing up. So therefore, this is what it's going to be like for my kids growing up. It's just not. I mean, I have 3 kids. My youngest is 24, and he's the only one of my 3 kids that is younger than Google, right? So the world completely transformed on its axis about 25 years ago.
Yep.
And we are dominated by technology. We are dominated by social media. We have attention spans of an ant. I don't know if that's being fair to ants, so apologies. We realize that all of the rules and parameters of the world we were raised in are off the table. And the biggest one, I think, is authority, is relationship with authority. When I grew up, there were a few television stations. There was centralized news. I remember the start of CNN. News was news. It wasn't editorial, and it wasn't entertainment. And as progressed through the end of the 20th century, and that began to shift, and now we have social media and all these resources, kids are exposed to a ton of different voices.
Yeah.
I'll use that word, as authority. And they no longer see parents and teachers and their pastor as the authority in their life.
No.
They just don't.
Yeah.
They actually are asked again and again and again to be their own authority, to make choices about what they decide at a very early age. And then they're exposed to, PBS cartoons or anything in between. They're exposed to all of these other resources very, very young. And they don't know how to discern our authority from a random TikToker's authority. And so I think that we struggle with this, how do I discipline and be more authoritative? And we with these issues because we're frustrated that our kids are rude and disrespectful. But part of it is because we have this notion that we're the parents, and so they're supposed to show us respect because we're the authority in their life, when we don't really realize we're not the authority in their life. They have lots of them. So we have to earn their respect. We can't demand it in the way that previous generations could. Because when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of exposure to other adults besides my teachers and my parents.
No.
There. And so, yeah, you did what dad said. But that world is not the world we live in anymore. And I'm not judging whether that's right or wrong or good or bad. It just isn't the same world.
Yeah.
And so we have to respect that they're constantly learning to discern and to earn the risk that they give us, to treat them with respect and invite them and ask them and that they treat us with respect.
Yeah.
And that teach them about our leadership in their life.
Yeah. I think they also see other adults who are older than them. So in our generations, on those same platforms, doing things they don't agree with, they think it's silly, and so that's another layer. Like, why should I listen to your generation? You're all in debt. Like I listen to you about finance.
Y'all are all crazy.
Yeah. Why should I go to college? You go to college and you just told me you're struggling, to make a certain amount of money.
It's true.
When my friend's an influencer and makes more than you at 18, it's sort of
yes.
the conversations that I hear all the time, and it makes sense. I can totally understand that perspective, and I honestly don't have an answer for them because I'm living it, and I think yeah, I feel the same way you do, honestly. But that's a piece of it too.
They're not wrong. We just want it to be a certain way or a different way, but it's not. They're these kids, and they're seeing things through an open lens, and they're curious. My son at 23 turned to me and he said, Mom, there's not a kid my age who hasn't been traumatized by the internet. That's quite a statement.
Yeah.
Right? We let this huge thing into our lives without really properly thinking through how do we want to bring this into our lives. And now we're doing the same thing with AI.
Yeah.
And not demonizing it or making it wrong. It just have to learn to live with it. I suspect it was the same in the age of technology and with ready-made clothing and ready-made food and everything else, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have to learn how to live with it. I mean, I grew up in the 70s where the food was horrible because we put all these chemicals in our food before we realized maybe we shouldn't put all these chemicals in our food. So we have to be adaptive to it without demonizing them for this being their life experience.
yeah.
Because this is their life experience. It's very, very from ours.
I'm also very proud of them. I follow, they're not kids, they're like young, who are using their platform to advocate, particularly around autism, ADHD, and things like that. And just like, I mean, brilliant, brilliant that they're doing in school. One
Yeah.
of them was like recently on the news and got, I think she got like a holiday pad, like created or something like that. Just like really cool things. And they are actually like helping others understand what autism looks like or what ADHD can look like, or um, also that they are not incapable of doing anything. But that like there are all these things that they bring to the world, and I think that that's another beautiful thing. When I
For
was working in
sure.
corporate America, there was a lot of conversations about Gen Z doesn't. They want to buck the system. They don't want to follow anything, and da, 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 like all these things. And I'm like, does anybody ask me about the way that they innovate, the ways in which that they like really creatively,
Yeah.
the amount of information that they process and like synthesize and come up with something to do with it,
Yeah.
something that would take me, because of the way in which I learned, maybe a little bit longer, because I'm going to want to pass it through your eyes and then the next person's eyes. It's going to take me weeks, right? And they're like, I just kind of thought about it and I already thought about the pros and cons and I have it to you today. Like that's amazing. Like
It is.
there's so much that they bring. Maybe that's why they don't want to be here, because they feel stifled. They feel like I can't be, we're saying, you come here and be your full self, but they feel like they can't be
But
because you
can you?
their entire generation without seeing all of the positives. They are almost more naturally inclusive. They're constantly thinking about who's not in the room, or I've got a friend or a parent, or thinking about that. Like my niece is constantly thinking about that kind of thing. She's about to be 21 and she's in college, always considering like all these different perspectives, and then that's how she sort of decides what's next. And I'm like, that's
Wow.
amazing.
It is amazing. So we started off talking about this movie that kids in Re-election. A lot of the themes we're talking about come up in this movie because what happens is you get a 42-year-old who goes back to high school, and the high school students are like teaching what the world is now, not what it
Mm.
was 25 years ago. And so, you eat vegetarian. He's like, the scene where it's like, I don't know why you eat that. And this is about, well, the impact on the planet for eating meat. Right. And I mean, there are a lot of examples. I don't want to give any spoilers, but
Yeah.
it's about this generation's take on why they're making the choices they're making,
I
and
love
teaching it to somebody, your age. It's very funny because this person was like basically out of the world for 25 years and comes back and it's like, what, wait, what? Why is that person wearing a stuffed animal in the lunchroom? And why is that kid living, wearing earphones in the lunchroom? And so they really address it in a very subtle, but also very clear way. It's funny. And
Yeah.
it's exactly what you're speaking about. There's just this acceptance of this is the world they live in, that
Yeah.
they're willing to accept. I often say, I joke with my kids that they're very tolerant of intolerant of intolerance,
Yes.
right? It's this
Yes.
weird, they're very tolerant, but they're totally intolerant all at the same time.
even
It's
when
so
they were even when they were young kids, like I think about my nieces, my oldest nieces and nephews, and them being, they were intolerant of intolerance then.
yes.
And, of course, all that does is just continue to build, and they realize, friends and their peers, like it's the same thing. So that increases confidence of like, yes, it really is wrong. That is not okay. Or I'm not going to stand for that. Or why are people doing that? I mean, just lots of questions like that would come up. And sometimes my brother would be like, I don't know, go ask your Aunt Dom. Like, because he's like, I don't know how to answer that. And I'm like, answer it honestly. They can't come to me for everything. Right? Or
Parents.
their parent. I don't know, you have with what topics you want me to talk to them about. But I'm like, just answer their question. Engage them. Say, you know what? I don't know. I never thought about it. And see where they go with it. But they were, they were like that. I'm not surprised at how they are as young adults. I'm like, yeah, of course, yes, of course. In kindergarten, you thought that was unfair.
Yeah.
So
they're curious in all the best ways. And if we see that, if we don't take offense to that, then we can really learn a lot from it.
Yeah. They're changing the world.
Thank goodness.
I think that's how people probably thought about millennials, except we just...
Oh, it's not millennials now. Y'all have your role too.
We do. But I'm like, everything that we were taught, it was almost like, wow, it didn't work like you said it was going to work. But resilient. If there's
and then the next generation is learning from that, and then the next generation's learning from that. I mean, it's all I like to talk about what I call the magic 3 questions. Right? There's the gift of life is to fail forward. Right? That's how we learn. We learn by failing, and so we look at whatever happens and we say, well, what did work? What do I want to do differently? That's the 3 questions, and they're magic, and they will move us forward. If we are so busy trying to avoid failure, we'll never learn or grow or change anything. Like, if you don't believe that, then ask yourself, do you like chocolate chip cookies? Because chocolate chips were a mistake.
Wow.
Is that great?
I'm going to tell my daughter about that.
They were a mistake.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Some of the best inventions were.
I think about some of my favorite foods, and I'm like, who decided
that
we should who decided that we should put these things together because it was amazing? Like peanut butter and jelly. Like who said,
peanut butter and chocolate. I mean,
Yeah. Like who said, let's put that together, right? Or delicious teas, juices, and let's put this plant in a bag, dried out, and just add water to it, and it's gonna make you go to sleep. Like who, and I love that. You're right. You when you fail, and it doesn't make you a failure because everyone fails.
Well, you know who Sarah Blakely is? She's the one who created Spanx. Okay?
Yes.
She says that the secret to her success is that she grew up in a family where her dad celebrated failure every night, and he would say to them at the dinner table every night, "What'd you fail at today?" And she and her brother would high five each other about mistakes that they made. So when she came up with the idea for Spanx, she had no retail history, no fashion history, no, no manufacturing, no nothing. And it never occurred to her that she couldn't do it.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
I love that. I'm going to start asking myself that.
What'd you fail at today?
Sometimes it's actually easier for me to figure out where I failed than where I had a success some days. So
for most of us, the catch is to do it without judgment, without shame, without embarrassment. Like you got to do it matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
Right? Just, oh, okay. Well, what do I want to do with that information? What do I want to learn from it?
I love it. So many good nuggets. Good nuggets. You had one more thing that you wrote down that you were going to add.
Oh, I did. Anticipation. Oh, shoot. Did I write enough note for me to remember it? Oh, okay. So we were talking about transitioning to harder things or bigger things you were talking about. And what I was thinking about was sometimes the problem with the transition to the bigger thing isn't the thing itself, it's the anticipation of it, right? It's that fear of it. We don't have certain conversations, not because the conversation's as hard as we think it is, but because we're afraid to have the conversation. And so I learned something. It was some stupid B movie my kids were listening to when I was a kid. And I heard this one nugget that was about it only takes 20 seconds of bravery. And so if you challenge yourself before you to kind of that 20 seconds of fear to get to something, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. It's usually the hesitation is more in here about, I'm worried about it. I'm afraid of it. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how they're going to respond. Yeah. And once you start, you get the ball rolling. It's often so much easier.
I love that. That's what everyone write that down.
It's a cool one. And I got it from a movie, but I can't remember what movie.
I'm going to write it down on a couple Post-it notes. Just 20 seconds.
It's a bravery. It's all you need.
Yeah, I love that. What encouragement or reassurance would you offer parents who are feeling anxious about kids leaving the home? Especially those who feel like their child will fully launch into adulthood. I'm specifically thinking about kids who have to maybe stay at home longer because they can't live independently and things like that. What would you offer?
Here's coming up. So I had this beautiful opportunity to meet and then interview this guy named Andreas, and he is a futurist, and he is one of the leading world researchers in Europe on future. And they've researched all over the world, except for the United States. They weren't included in the information. And what they learned about how important it is to hold hope, and that when people feel like they're moving towards something, that engenders a sense of hope. And when people feel like things are coming at them, that engenders a sense of fear. And so part of what they derived from this research, huge, that hundreds of thousands of people research, was how important it is for parents to hold vision and hope for their children. Because our kids need us to hold a vision for them, to believe in their capacity, even if they're not sure they can do it themselves. And a lot of our kids getting ready to leave or move or launch to the next thing, they're a little afraid too.
Yeah.
And so they need us to be going, you got this, man. You can do this. I know you can. And I get you may not be clear about it, and that's okay. If I were you, I might be a little worried too. And I just want you to know I see it for you. I will hold this for you until you're ready to hold it for yourself, because they need us to see their capacity, not their limitation. The world is telling them what their limitation is. They're telling themselves what their limitation is. And what they need from us more than anything is to believe that it's possible. Because most of us who aren't sure if our kids are going to make it or not, if they're going to live on our couch for 30 years or whatever in 30 years, most of those kids have the capacity for independence if we really learn to foster it.
Yeah.
And learning to foster it is actually our job, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why you're listening, right? Because parenting is about the parent, and we've got to learn how to be who they need us to be, right? So that they can learn how to be who they want to be.
That's excellent advice. It was making me think about going to and I had a lot of schools to choose from. Got a scholarship offer from a school I hadn't even heard of at the time. And so I went to St. Louis University's campus to the scholarship interview. And I remember walking down in the quad and saying to myself, I can see myself here. And that ended up being the place I chose. Well, 2 weeks after move-in, I was crying, bawling on the phone with my mom, like, I want to go home. And she's like, oh, absolutely not. She's like, no, remember, you could see yourself there. So she said, like, I want you to wipe your face. Like, I want you to go clean your face. It's Sunday. Football is on. You love football. Remember that big TV? Like, she had been there, right? She moved me in. There's that big TV down in the lobby. I want you to go down there and, like, spark up a conversation with someone watching football. So in my mind, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I'm going to go do it because I'm not doing anything else. Like, we'll see what happens. Like, really, a part of it was, like, to prove her wrong.
Right,
I go downstairs. There's a guy from New York there watching football, pretty quiet and reserved like me, but we end up sparking up a conversation. About 10 minutes later, a group of 10 kids comes in from all over the place. Some of them happen to be from my hometown. I just didn't know them. They went to a different school. This ends up being a friend group that I still have.
Oh, I got
over 20 years later. And it was that simple that my mom reminded me, remember you saw yourself there. And like, I'm not coming back to pick you up. I'm not coming back today to pick you up. Like, I'm not driving hours to come get you. No. But like, I believe that you can do this because remember you believed that you could do this.
Yeah.
And I did. And then
what a gorgeous story. So,
yeah.
And I had a similar story. So I went to school like a plane ride away that far. Mm-hmm. And my mom took me, and we're at a hotel the night before moving in. And I lost it at the hotel that night. I don't want to go, turn around. Let's go back home. Never mind. I was bawling, crying. I just want to, and similar, she's like, no, you chose this. This is a great place for you. And you loved it when you were here. And let's just get tomorrow, and then we'll talk again tomorrow. Let's just keep going, and I just needed to keep going. But I also, I needed to break down to break through.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need a good cry. We need to get the emotions out. We got to let it go. We got to vent or scream or cry or clear or whatever it is for you. We've got to say, I'm afraid. What if this doesn't work? in order to pick ourselves up and push through and make it work. So
Yeah.
sometimes we also need the space to say, and she gave you that too.
She
right?
did.
That's
She
right.
did. She did. I'll never forget. It's like one of those things I'll never forget
Yeah,
because
it's
I
huge.
really was like, I'm just going to prove her wrong and let her know she still needs to come get me. But I don't even know that she knew how right she would be. I think she was just like, I mean, I know what you like. Like, I'm sure in her mind, she thought this girl's going to have to do this like every week for a while. 15 minutes, right? 20 seconds of bravery
20
we're talking
seconds of
about, right?
bravery, right? To
Yeah,
walk into
like
that room.
literally just clean my face, go downstairs. And there's another 20 seconds of bravery. Let me talk to this kid who's sitting next to me who's
Right.
from New York. I picked up on his accent. Like, hey, where are you from? Whoa, what are you doing in the Midwest, right? And then these other kids come in, they know who he is, right? Find out he plays basketball, whatever, and the rest is history. Like,
Yeah.
And so I love that advice. I love holding that hope, being that space for your kids. They can be what they want to be.
Yeah.
Even if there's a challenge, right? We all have challenges. So I
Yeah,
love
I think
that.
we have that tendency to look to the legends and we're afraid, right? And
Yeah.
get that we're afraid, but I've seen so many kids who look on the surface like they're never going to make it, who have made it in beautiful ways when
Yeah.
the parents got out of the way.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those parents, I had to get out of my kid's way. And part of it was I had to stop trying to fit my kid into everybody else's box and recognize that this kid marched to the beat of a different drummer, and we just needed it differently. And they needed a different path, and I needed to follow their lead instead of trying to force them into what was expected of them.
Yeah.
And it was hard because, my husband and I both went to elite colleges and we're smart and we had smart families and successful families. And so it was really hard to say, yeah, my kid wants to be an actor.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my kid's in a movie with Tony Danza, has done movies with, Kate Winslet, and looks different for every kid.
Yeah.
This is not what I would have wanted or scripted or imagined. And by all circumstances, it's also successful. It just looks different.
Yeah.
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 And that's what we have to allow it to look like, what it's going to look like.
Yeah. We don't need to get in the way.
No, in fact, we have to get ourselves out of the way.
Thank you so much for
It
this
was
amazing
so yummy.
conversation. Everyone, make sure that you go follow Impact Parents on all social media. Definitely go to impactparents.com. There is always some really cool things going on. So much help and support for parents, in addition to coaching and groups and things like that. It will really help you focus on you as a parent. I mean, I always learn a lot from these conversations and even the clips and things I see on social media. So
thank you.
I'm
And I want to
constantly
tell
telling
you
people
that,
about you.
and I know you'll share it, but I know by the time this comes out, we do live workshops a month, and we're doing a great workshop on and helping, parents navigate technology in November. And then we're also doing a live chat on AI, on parenting of AI, that my husband and I are doing.
Oh, good. I'll probably be at both of those.
It's going to be fascinating. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 month.
Perfect.
But I think it's important. I think we need to start talking about AI as a parent.
Yes.
So we're going to do that as well.
Perfect. We'll make sure that gets in our newsletter as well, but definitely go to the Impact Parents website, register for those when you see them, because you'll get the email reminders and all of that. Thank you again for this amazing conversation. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this. Definitely, if you listened to this all the way through and didn't write anything down, start it over, listen again, take some notes, because there were a lot of good nuggets here. And thank you again to our sponsor, Pop. Definitely check out that starter kit. It will make your family nights or just snack time a lot more fun. And we'll see you next time on the Parent Porch Podcast.